The SS Resolute loomed ahead, silhouetted against the pale glow of a distant dying star. To Commander Alara Strix, it was more scrapyard than starship. Its jagged hull bore the scars of countless battles, a testament to its storied past. This wasn't the pristine command post she had envisioned, but orders were orders, and humanity's position in the galactic concord hung by a thread. "Docking sequence complete," the shuttle pilot announced, breaking her reverie. "Good luck in there, Commander." Alara nodded, her face a calm mask that hid the churn of apprehension beneath. As she stepped off the shuttle and into the Resolute's dimly lit airlock, a stench of recycled air and burnt wiring hit her. A tall figure awaited her, Lieutenant Orvok, the ship's Rigelian chief engineer. "You're late," Orvok said, his deep-set amber eyes narrowing. His voice was guttural, each word laced with disdain. "Typical human punctuality." Alara straightened, her boots clicking on the metal deck. "Not late. I arrived precisely when I intended to." Orvok let out a sharp exhale, something between a sigh and a growl. "You'll find this crew is not so easily impressed by human bravado." "Nor am I." "Noted." Alara brushed past him, her strides purposeful. The corridor led to the command deck, where she hoped to assert some semblance of authority. Instead, she was greeted by a cacophony of overlapping arguments. The diverse crew, Rigelians, Ultheri, and a handful of other alien species, seemed more interested in berating one another than running the ship. She cleared her throat loudly. "Attention!" The chatter died, dozens of eyes turning toward her. "I'm Commander Strix, your new commanding officer. Let's skip the formalities. This ship is a mess." "That changes today." A Rigelian male near the back snorted. "Another human savior. Just what we needed." Alara's gaze locked onto him. "What you needed was someone willing to clean up this disaster of a ship before it implodes under its own inefficiency." The Rigelian hesitated, but the grumbles subsided. For now. Alara scanned the room, noting the outdated consoles and flickering screens. The Resolute was barely operational. She could see why this post had been considered a punishment, given to a human, no less, as a subtle insult to her species. "First order of business," she continued. "I need a full systems report in my quarters within the hour." Dismissed. The crew shuffled out reluctantly, their skepticism palpable. Alara turned to Orvok, who hadn't moved from his spot by the doorway. "I take it morale isn't your strong suit," she said. "Morale is irrelevant if the ship doesn't work," Orvok replied coldly. "And right now it doesn't. Then we'd better fix it." An hour later, Alara sat in her sparsely furnished quarters, poring over the systems report. Orvok's assessment was brutally honest. Half the ship's subsystems were either offline or on the verge of failure. The Resolute was a relic being held together by duct tape and stubbornness. Her comm unit buzzed. "Commander, bridge to quarters." She tapped the console. "Go ahead." "Priority transmission from Galactic Command," came the clipped reply. "Encrypted channel." "I'm on my way." When she reached the bridge, the holographic projector flickered to life, displaying the stern face of Admiral Corrin, a hulking Ultheri with iridescent blue scales. "Commander Strix," Corrin said without preamble. "You've barely set foot on that ship, and already there's trouble." Alara folded her arms. "What kind of trouble?" "A coded transmission intercepted near your position. We believe it's linked to Thalvarix." The name sent a chill through her. Thalvarix was a ghost story whispered among officers, a former Tar tactician who had vanished after the war. Many believed he was orchestrating a resurgence of conflict from the shadows. "What does the transmission say?" she asked. Corrin's expression darkened. "That's your job to find out. You're sitting on a political powder keg, Commander. Fail, and humanity's standing in the Concord won't just falter, it'll shatter." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Alara staring at the empty space where Corrin's image had been. She turned to the crew. "Trace the signal's origin." "Now." Orvok raised an eyebrow. "Do you even know what you're looking for?" "Something that shouldn't be there," she shot back. Start with the ship's AI. Orvok hesitated but ultimately complied, muttering in Rigelian under his breath. Elara ignored him. This wasn't about winning anyone's approval, it was about staying alive. The ship's AI, Cortexa, was as temperamental as the crew. Commander, it said, its voice clipped and artificial. The intercepted transmission is heavily encrypted. Processing will require additional time. How much time? Elara asked, pacing the bridge. Unknown, Cortexa replied. The encryption protocols are unusual. Unusual how? Orvok interjected, leaning over the console. Human in origin, Cortexa replied, eliciting a murmur of surprise from the crew. Elara frowned. That made no sense. Humanity didn't have the resources, or the gall, to collaborate with someone like Thalverix. If this was true, it could spark an interstellar scandal. Before she could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Proximity alert! A crew member shouted. Unidentified vessel approaching at high speed. Elara snapped into action. Shields up! All hands to battle stations! The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as the crew scrambled to follow her orders. The viewscreen displayed a sleek, predatory ship closing in fast. Its design was unmistakably Tar, sleek, angular, and bristling with weapons. Why would they attack now? Orvok muttered, his tone uncharacteristically uneasy. They're not here for a friendly chat, Elara said grimly. Arm the weapons. Commander, our weapons systems are barely functional, Cortexa warned. Then we make do, she said, her mind racing. Divert all available power to the forward shields. Prepare to fire on my mark. The enemy ship launched a volley of plasma bolts, the Resolute shuddering under the impact. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, and the acrid smell of burned circuitry filled the air. Shields holding at 40%, Cortexa reported. Elara clenched her fists. Return fire. Aim for their propulsion systems. The Resolute's cannons roared to life, spitting streams of plasma at the approaching vessel. The shots were clumsy, a reflection of the ship's degraded state, but one found its mark, crippling the enemy's engines. Direct hit! A crew member called out. Good, Elara said. Now let's end this. Before she could issue the final order, the enemy ship detonated in a blinding explosion. The bridge fell silent as the crew stared at the viewscreen in disbelief. What just happened? Orvok asked. Unknown, Cortexa replied. The vessel self-destructed. Elara exhaled slowly. This wasn't a victory, it was a message. Whoever had sent that ship wanted her to know she was being watched. Damage report, she ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Minimal, Cortexa replied. Repairs are already underway. Elara turned to the crew, her gaze hard. This was just the beginning. If anyone here doubts my command, you'd better reconsider. Because the next time they come, we won't have the luxury of surviving out of sheer luck. For the first time, there was no backtalk. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but no one challenged her authority. Elara allowed herself a small, grim smile. The Galactic Concord might have sent her to the edge of oblivion, but she was determined to show them, and her enemies, what humanity was truly capable of. The glow of the holographic table flickered, casting blue light across the tense faces gathered on the bridge. Commander Elara Strix stood at its head, arms crossed, studying the encrypted transmission. The ship was quiet, save for the hum of its failing systems and the occasional crackle from the table's interface. This transmission, she began, originated from within our operational radius. It's coded using human encryption, but it doesn't match any protocol we've authorized. If Thalverix is involved, it means someone here, someone close, is helping him. Lieutenant Orvok leaned in, his amber eyes scanning the data. And you're suggesting it's one of us? I'm suggesting nothing, Elara said. But whoever it is, they want us dead, or worse. This is sabotage. Orvok's lip curled, but he said nothing. The rest of the crew shifted uncomfortably, exchanging wary glances. Trust was already thin aboard the SS Resolute, and this revelation strained it further. "We need to decode this," Elara said, turning to Cortexa. "How much longer?" 3 hours, at minimum, the AI replied. "The encryption layers are." "No," Elara cut in. "We don't have 3 hours. Thalvarix isn't waiting for us to catch up. Prioritize." Cortexa paused. "Understood. Reallocating processing resources." 3 hours proved optimistic. By the time Cortexa announced partial decryption, the crew was restless, their unease manifesting in small disputes and muttered suspicions. Elara called a meeting in the war room, its cramped space amplifying the tension. "Preliminary decryption suggests this transmission is a set of coordinates," Cortexa began, her holographic form shimmering in the dim light. "They lead to an asteroid field in the Vraxis belt, a known smuggling route." "Convenient," Orvok said dryly. "A perfect place to ambush a decrepit ship like ours." "Which is exactly why we're going," Elara countered. The crew erupted into protests, voices overlapping. "You can't be serious. This is suicide. We're barely holding together." "Enough!" Elara's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Silence fell. "We didn't join this crew to play it safe. If we don't act, Thalvarix wins without a fight. And if anyone here has a better plan, I'm all ears." No one spoke. The quiet was answer enough. Elara nodded. "Good. We set course for the Vraxis belt immediately." Dismissed. As the crew filed out, Orvok lingered. "You're gambling with their lives," he said, his tone low and accusatory. "I'm protecting them," Elara replied, meeting his gaze. "And if you can't see that, you're welcome to file a transfer request." Orvok's jaw tightened, but he said nothing further. He turned and left, his footsteps echoing in the corridor. The Vraxis belt was a graveyard of ancient ships and scattered debris. The asteroid field's chaotic orbits created constant motion, with chunks of rock and metal colliding in an endless ballet of destruction. Navigating it required precision, especially in a ship as battered as the Resolute. "Cortexa, plot the safest path through," Elara ordered as the ship approached the outer edge. "Safe is relative," the AI replied. "This vessel is not equipped for." "Just do it," Elara snapped. The holographic map updated, displaying a winding route through the field. The ship's engines groaned as they adjusted course. On the bridge, the tension was palpable. Crew members exchanged nervous glances, their unease mirrored in Elara's stiff posture. She refused to let it show. Fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. "Captain," Orvok said from his station, "we're picking up a faint energy signature. Could be a cloaked ship. Could also be a decoy," Elara said. "Stay sharp. Weapons on standby." The crew moved to their stations, the hum of activity filling the bridge. Elara's gaze remained fixed on the viewscreen as the ship crept deeper into the field. The energy signature grew stronger, but its source remained elusive. "There," Orvok said, pointing to a cluster of asteroids on the display. "It's coming from that formation." "Bring us closer," Elara ordered. "But keep shields at maximum." The Resolute inched forward, its engines straining against the gravitational pull of the larger asteroids. As they neared the formation, a shadow detached from the rocks, a sleek tar vessel, its hull shimmering as it decloaked. "Hostile detected!" a crew member shouted. "Weapons are hot!" Elara's heart raced, but her voice was steady. "Hold fire! Let them make the first move." The tar ship loomed closer, its predatory design a stark contrast to the Resolute's battle-worn exterior. For a moment, it seemed they might pass without incident. Then the first plasma bolt streaked toward them. "Evasive maneuvers!" Elara barked. The ship lurched as the pilot swung it hard to port, narrowly avoiding the blast. "Shields down to 70%, Cortexa reported. "Return fire!" Elara ordered. The Resolute's cannons roared, but the shots were sluggish and imprecise. The tar vessel darted through the field with alarming agility, its attacks relentless. "We can't keep this up," Orvok said, his voice tight. Their firepower outclasses ours. We're not trying to win, Elara replied. We're trying to survive. Cortexa, calculate the trajectory of those asteroids. Can we use them to our advantage? Analyzing, the AI said. Seconds ticked by like hours. Confirmed. Adjusting course. The ship veered suddenly, weaving between the tumbling asteroids. The tar vessel pursued, its weapons blazing. Elara's plan became clear as the Resolute led their enemy into a narrow passage where two massive asteroids drifted on a collision course. Now! Elara shouted. Full reverse! The engines roared as the ship halted, just outside the danger zone. The tar vessel wasn't as lucky. Trapped by inertia, it was caught between the converging asteroids. The crew watched as the enemy ship was crushed in a deafening implosion. A stunned silence followed. Then a voice broke the quiet. Direct hit. They're gone. Elara exhaled, her grip on the console loosening. Damage report? Minimal, Orvok said reluctantly. We got lucky. We made our own luck, Elara replied. Scan the debris. I want to know what they were protecting. Among the wreckage, a data core was recovered, intact despite the destruction. Back aboard the Resolute, Elara watched as Cortexa began decrypting its contents. The crew's exhaustion was evident, but so was their curiosity. It's another set of coordinates, Cortexa announced after an agonizing wait. This time, leading to a small moon in the Daranox system. What's there? Orvok asked. That's what we're going to find out, Elara said, her voice resolute. Whatever Thalvarix is planning, we're one step closer to stopping him. As the ship set its course, Elara allowed herself a moment of quiet. The stakes were rising, and the dangers were only growing, but so was her resolve. This war might be invisible, but she would fight it with everything she had. The SS Resolute dropped out of hyperspace, its engines groaning in protest. Ahead loomed the moon of Darwin III, a desolate, cratered rock in the shadow of a gas giant. It was an unremarkable location on any galactic map, a place so devoid of value that even smugglers avoided it. And yet, here lay the coordinates from the recovered data core. Passive scans active, Lieutenant Orvok announced, his voice a low rumble. Detecting faint energy readings on the surface. Possible artificial structures. Cloaking technology? Elara asked. Most likely, Orvok replied. But nothing we can handle. Elara nodded, her mind already calculating their next move. Cortexa, analyze orbital patterns. Look for any signs of automated defenses. The AI responded instantly. Analysis complete. No active satellites or weapon systems detected. The surface is unguarded, at least on the approach. That's what worries me, Elara muttered. Set us down outside the target area. I want eyes on the ground before we risk the ship. The landing was rough, as expected from a ship that had seen better centuries. Dust and debris swirled in the thin atmosphere as the Resolute touched down. Elara gathered her team in the cramped deployment bay, Orvok, tactical specialist Lyratech, and 2 Ulthari scouts. Listen up, she began, addressing the group. This isn't a routine mission. We don't know what's waiting for us out there, but assume it's hostile. Our primary objective is to identify what Thalvarix is hiding and recover any actionable intelligence. Questions? What happens if we encounter resistance? Lyra asked, her sharp features set in determination. Neutralize it, Elara said simply. We're not here to start a war, but we're not backing down, either. The surface of Darwin III was as inhospitable as it looked from orbit. The ground was uneven, riddled with jagged rocks and fissures. A pale, grayish light filtered through the atmosphere, casting long shadows that played tricks on the eyes. Elara and her team moved in silence, weapons at the ready. The faint energy readings from orbit grew stronger as they neared a shallow canyon. At its center stood a structure, a sleek, obsidian building that seemed to absorb the weak light around it. This doesn't look like abandoned tech, Orvok observed. It's too pristine. Agreed, Elara said. Stay sharp. As they approached the building, the air grew warmer, the faint hum of machinery vibrating through the ground. Lyra scanned the perimeter with a handheld device. No immediate signs of life, she reported. But the power signatures are concentrated underground. Underground means a bunker, Orvok said grimly. And bunkers mean traps. Alara's jaw tightened. We go in slow and steady. Lyra, take point. The entrance was a featureless black panel, but Lyra quickly found a hidden control pad. A few deft movements later, the panel slid aside with a hiss, revealing a dimly lit corridor descending into the earth. Typical tar design, Orvok muttered. Minimalist and menacing. Alara motioned the team forward. The air inside was stifling, filled with the faint scent of ozone. The corridor walls were lined with alien glyphs that glowed faintly as they passed. Cortexa, are you getting this? Alara asked through her calm. Affirmative, the AI replied. Recording and translating. Preliminary analysis indicates this is a command hub, likely linked to Thalvarix's operations. Then we're in the right place, Alara said. Let's move. The corridor opened into a vast chamber, its centerpiece a towering holographic display showing a map of the galaxy. Red markers dotted several systems, many of which Alara recognized as critical Concord territories. Thalvarix's war map, Lyra whispered. Alara's eyes narrowed. This isn't just a hideout. It's a command center. Before she could say more, the room shuddered, and the sound of grinding metal echoed around them. Panels slid open along the walls, revealing sleek, spider-like drones armed with plasma cannons. Ambush! Orvok roared, raising his weapon. The first shots lit up the chamber, bolts of plasma streaking through the air. Alara dove behind a console, firing back at the advancing drones. Lyra and the Ulthari scouts flanked, their precision shots disabling several enemies. These things are fast! Lyra shouted, narrowly dodging a plasma bolt. Focus on their joints! Orvok bellowed, blasting the legs off a drone that skittered toward him. Alara kept her head low, her mind racing. The drones were relentless, their coordination unsettling. This wasn't a random defense. It was deliberate, intelligent. Thalvarix was watching them. Cortexa, can you hack into their control system? She asked, ducking another shot. Attempting access, the AI replied. Stand by. The fight raged on, the team holding their ground despite the overwhelming odds. Alara's pulse thundered in her ears, but she refused to let fear take hold. They had come too far to fail now. Commander, Cortex's voice cut in. I've disabled the drone's targeting systems. You have approximately 60 seconds before they reboot. Good enough, Alara said. Take them down! Her team surged forward, picking off the disoriented drones with ruthless efficiency. Within moments, the chamber fell silent, the floor littered with smoking wreckage. Everyone okay? Alara asked, scanning her team. They nodded, bruised but unbroken. Now what? Orvok asked, gesturing to the holographic map. Alara stepped forward, studying the display. We download everything. Lyra, get the data core. Lyra moved quickly, extracting the core from the central console. As she worked, the hologram shifted, and an image of Thalvarix appeared, a towering, reptilian figure with cold, calculating eyes. Commander Strix, the hologram said, its voice smooth and mocking. Your reputation precedes you. Alara's grip tightened on her weapon. Thalvarix. I was hoping we'd meet. This is not a meeting, he replied. Merely a courtesy. You've proven more resourceful than I anticipated, but your efforts are futile. The galaxy's fate is already sealed. We'll see about that, Alara said. The hologram flickered, and alarms blared throughout the facility. Your time is up, Commander. I look forward to seeing how far you're willing to go. The image vanished, replaced by a countdown timer. Self-destruct sequence, Orvok said, his voice grim. We need to move, now. The team sprinted back through the corridor, the walls shaking with each passing second. Explosions rippled behind them, the heat scorching their backs as they burst onto the surface. The Resolute waited nearby, its engines roaring to life. "Get us out of here!" Alara shouted as they boarded. The ship lifted off, narrowly escaping the fireball that consumed the facility. On the bridge, Alara sank into her chair, her heart pounding. "Data core secured," Lyra reported, holding up the device. "And we're still alive." "Barely." Alara managed a grim smile. "That's enough for now." As the Resolute jumped to hyperspace, the weight of their discovery settled over her. Valverix's plans were far more advanced than she had feared, but they had a chance, a slim, precious chance, to stop him. And she would see it through, no matter the cost.